Okay, so today I'm talking to Brett Schlesinger. Hi, Brett. How are you?
Hi, how's it? Good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Really pleased that you're on
Good.
from,
Yeah,
well,
good to
can
be
I say
here.
sunny South Africa?
It is. It's actually sunny and it's South Africa.
Cool.
Exactly.
So where are you exactly in
In Cape Town, in the place called Constantia, which is like a suburb, leafy and spacious and actually very lovely. Lots
cool,
of wine farms and
oh,
open spaces, mountains.
fantastic. Sounds brilliant. It's a place
It
I've never
is.
been to, but I just get the idea that it's just an extraordinarily beautiful place. Am I
Yeah,
right?
it's got a bit of everything. Beaches, mountains, deserts, lovely oceans and long drives through forests and whatever you like. If you like wine or culture, or it's got a bit of everything.
But
Actually, I think,
yeah.
including corrupt politicians and a bad economy. Take your pick.
Diversity is good, isn't it?
Exactly. We have that.
That's
Yeah.
very good. Yeah. So obviously, just as a little bit of a, just for people that might be listening to this, there might be a bit of noise in the background because I'm actually doing this from home today. So it'll be whatever happens in the neighbourhood seeping into the
Okay.
background. Um,
Great.
so my first question, my traditional first question is, what do you do?
Right. So what I do at the moment is nothing
Oh,
because the pandemic has very efficiently put my entire business on ice. We've chatted about this before. I'm happy about that, and I'm enjoying the forced break. But what I normally do, what I've done for 23 years, is I run a business called Drum Café. And what that is an interactive events company. So what we do is we go out to all kinds of meetings and conferences and gatherings, and we take normally one instrument per person. So it might be 10 people, it might be 12,000 people, and that's the biggest interactive we've done is 12,000. We give each person a drum, and we turn the audience into an interactive orchestra for an hour. Um, and that's the core of our business. It's a product created to solve the problem of conferences. And if you don't think there's a problem in conferences, there is. People disappear on their phones. They get distracted. They don't listen. They don't connect, and so on and so on. So our product, we found, is just an amazing way to get people to wake up and be present.
yeah.
Ironically, the world needs it more than ever now, and hasn't got any sign that they're going to be doing it again.
No.
But we don't know what the future holds. But at some point, people will probably realize that we need each other to be alive and connected.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because I was talking to somebody last week who said something very similar about the fact that he teaches like singing but like overtone singing,
Yeah,
um, and people finding their own voice and stuff like this. And he
yeah,
said exactly the same thing. We need that communication thing more than ever now,
yeah,
and it's the very thing that people are being told that they can't do, which is a sort of a
yeah.
strange
The
irony.
the implication's going to be it's going to reveal itself over some years
Yeah,
because the problem is that the world has kind of grabbed onto the separation with both hands. It's the weirdest thing. We need it, and yet we have embraced the isolation so quickly. I mean, I've seen it in my social groups and amongst people. So many people are enjoying disappearing alone at home on their screens and away from the world, stopping going to gym and yoga class and all the things that people do. And unfortunately, it's an unhealthy instinct because we let go and we walk away from that connection so easily, and yet it's not good for us. It doesn't mean it's good for us, the fact that we do it so easily.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Now, the thing is that your journey to this point is quite complex, isn't it, really? Because I remember you telling me how you sort of started off with things, because you didn't start off doing.
No, I didn't. I have got an interesting life in that I've never worked for anyone. I've never been given a salary check, and I've never had a single day's work for someone else. I've only had my own companies. I went to university and did English and psychology and then music therapy post-grad.
Right.
And when I finished that, well, I was actually in the last year of my sixth year, and I went to Brazil and bought these little bags that go around your hip. And I bought them as gifts, came back, and I decided that was a great business. So while I was at university, I started making these little bags, which I called moon bags. And that became my first company. At the age of 21, or age of 22, I started university at 17. I already had 36 staff at age 22, and a big factory, and a successful little business. Not a massive business, but successful, and certainly none of my friends were doing that yet. So I ran that business for about 10 years, produced a hell of a lot of these bags. The name Moon Bags actually became a generic name for the hip bag in South Africa, and still sticks to this day. And actually, I started in South Africa that trend that hadn't started in the world yet. It was like about 2 years before it started globally, and then the whole world started with these moon bags. So I had like about 11 years of running that business, and had lots and lots of fads. So I loved doing that, and it was very successful on that scale for me. Ran that for those years, and then after that I bought the building from my landlord where my factory was, and then I developed that building into a kind of a commercial building, and then bought another building and did that one. And then at that moment decided that I had bags coming through my ears and I was done with bags. So I moved away from the bag business, was allergic to bags for about 5 years. Now I love them again. But then I was doing this property development and rental business, which I enjoyed, but was never really that inspiring for me. It's kind of just a numbers game, and it's you're nagging people for money and stuff. I kind of hated doing that. And then I met a friend of mine. We started doing these drum circles, which is like kind of hippie drum circles with African drumming. And I used to do those. This drumming I've been doing all along since I was 13. And then I started doing these weekly drum circles at my house. And my friend, he came along to some of these, and he said, "This is the most incredible thing, to watch how people come alive when you do this drumming. This is a business. We should start a business." And I remember very clearly saying to him, "That is a very, very bad idea." And he honestly saw something that I could not see, because I just thought it was hellish. And, imagine me telling you, Vic, do guitar circles where you hand beginners guitars and make a music jam. It's like you get a headache just thinking about it. That's what I thought drum circles would be like. Non-drummers all being given a drum. Anyway, he had the vision to realize, no, I was wrong. There is actually something in that. And that was, we started this club called the Drum Café. And then basically it was like an interactive drumming venue where we had people coming in from the public and getting their drum and joining in with the drum circle. And it actually worked from day one. It was very successful. And that was the beginning of Drum Café. I think I mentioned to you that before Drum Café started, actually, in fact, sorry, even before Moonbag started, one of the reasons why I met you was I went off to travel the world, and I went to stay with Bhagwan, Osho, the guru. And then with him, had this amazing personal breakthrough, and opened up a hell of a lot. And that was when I met. You know, when we met was on a course by Alan Lowen, and that was when I met Alan, who was one of the top facilitators at this ashram. And that was just, you know, that's just an aside, really. It's not part of my career, but definitely part of who I am, for sure.
Now, a lot. Whenever I give that first question,
Yeah.
as I say, it's always a little bit of a trick question because it's never one thing, is it?
No, it's not.
You know, what do you do?
Yeah.
And it sort of starts to unfold lots of things. So I want to take you back to some stuff, because obviously for you to go, you know, meet up with Osho, whatever, you must have already been doing something, involved in something, interested in something. What sparked that sort of spiritual thing, and what sort of point in your life are we talking? Obviously it's early on.
Yeah, so I went to him when I was 18. It was in my second year of university, and you know, I don't know how much your listeners will know of him, but he was actually an amazing guy. There's this documentary that came out now called Wild Wild Country, where they paint a sort of black and white portrait of him that misses a lot of the magic of what he actually was. And they, you know, what's in that documentary is true, but what they miss is the magic. And there was a lot of magic there, where they opened people up. People just came to be who they were. And he was so good at opening people up and getting them to transform and wake up, that he became a massive cult. It did become a cult, for sure. But it was a positive cult where people had great experiences. So that was what drew me there. It was that magic was very real, and I have no regrets. I lost nothing going there. I only gained amazing experiences and growth and everything. And in the end, he went a bit nuts, and the organization became corrupt and creepy and strange, and it imploded and collapsed. But so yeah, what drew me there was the power of these meditations and the workshops that they were doing. I wasn't yet really specifically old enough to understand on a deeper level, you know, where I was going. So I was just on a bit of an adventure, you could say. It turns out I was exactly right, because I, to this day, love that type of thing.
Yes, I think that once you're turned on to that sort of stuff early on, it colours everything you do in the way you see the world.
Yes,
and you
absolutely.
don't, you know, one of the things that I've been sort of what sort of drives this really is the fact that we've, well, you know, I can only speak for the education system in the UK, but you're familiar with it because you lived in the UK for a while.
Yeah.
But it's so prescribed to the point that I think it's fair to say that creativity is crushed out of people, and I really mean that word, because it's, and I think things are a bit better now because there's probably a little bit more of an awareness of what goes on with thinking. But certainly in my day, you know, it was like creativity was just a word. It wasn't really a thing. You know, it sounds a bit bizarre, but it was all about, you do this and then you do that. And what's happened now, because it's so results orientated in the education system, it becomes like, well, we just have to do this, this, and this, and tick that box and tick that box, and we can get these kids to have this mark, But the trouble is you end up with people that don't seem to have any creativity left at all. And looking at the type of characters that appeared in, that drove the music in the 60s and 70s, most of these characters, guitarists and all the rest of it, they had no real decent education. They didn't go and, from the point of view of, music, it was all like they learnt it themselves. They didn't go anywhere to learn it. It was just learnt off records, and they were left to their own devices. And then if you think about that clutch of play, whether it's the Beatles or the Stones or the Animals or, Jimmy Page or whatever, primarily it's their desire and fired up by the enthusiasm about music. Yeah. Not because they were being taught something at school. Now we've got a situation where even music is being taught in that sort of way, which is very prescriptive. And it seems to be a bit sort of sterile. So going back to your thing about Osho, the thing that strikes me about this is often the real creative thing is you can't really put your finger on what it is. Which is, I think, really, when we talk about him, and I only know him from looking in from the outside. I wasn't involved in that sort of stuff, but I've met some characters who, okay, not as profound as Osho, but certainly some that were in a vibe that you sort of go like, this guy's, that trickster thing that he had. He could trick you. He could trick you into discovering something about yourself, right? And of course, that's looked upon with great skepticism now.
I don't totally agree with you in terms of of modern. I think that the creative people are everywhere. I mean, it's something. Yes, it's our culture's become very competitive, and people are a little bit stuck on their screens, and so it's harder to see. But when you look at like Ariana Grande, who I'm not mad about it, but she's very creative. Taylor Swift, I love Taylor Swift, super creative. I just think that there's always the same spectrum of people in the world. I think you get your Jeff Bezos, who he can just see stuff that no one else can see and knows how to make it happen. And you get all the way down to somebody who's just completely ineffective, doesn't create anything, doesn't think of anything. I think that full spectrum is always in existence throughout the ages. And I think our school system is flawed for sure. I don't think it encourages creativity, but I think the creative people, they're going to just pop out of the woodwork on their own. They're going to find their way out to the surface.
I agree with you, because what I'm trying to get at is the creativity doesn't come from the education system. I mean, that's a grand statement, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I agree with you that it's to do with people discovering it for themselves. And I think, but there are certain environments that foster that type of thing, and it's only really it's teaching adults over years and comparing them to children, right? When you always get that sort of thing, people go like, but children, they just learn, blah, blah, blah. And I always was sort of thinking, well, why is that? And of course, by the time you've taught a load of people they've been to university and everything, for them to be creative is really tricky, unless they already are. But I mean, a lot of them, really clever people, you're teaching them things like improvisation. And it's really a case of, well, you just take these things and sort of talk through the instrument. This bunch of notes and talk through. And the immediate thing that they tend to say is, how do I do that? or they'll come back with a question.
I think you're more at the coal face of working with people's creativity than I am. So you probably are faced with this thing much more deeply than I am as a person, because as a guitar teacher, when your job is literally to mine out that creativity in people, you can see very clearly when people don't have it. And I haven't obviously many times noticed musicians who can play 400 songs, and then you say, have you ever written your own song? Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
they've got no idea what it means to just jam. So I think your work reveals that more clearly. However, I do believe, Vic, that there are some people you just can't stop them. I mean, people like that. They can have the worst education, the worst upbringing, the worst skills, no access to resources, and they are just bursting with ideas. It's like, I think it's more of a personality type of thing. And I always use the example when I'm talking about stuff of this guy Magnus Carlsen, the chess player. I mean,
Yes,
I don't know if you follow chess, but he was
yes, I
born
do.
wired to play chess. His brain is like a machine made to do chess. Like, so when he looks at a chessboard, he can see so much more than all of us,
Yes,
that it's like it's mind-boggling to think about it. And I think it's similar with creativity, like someone like Mozart, or even, like I said earlier, Taylor Swift, Bob Dylan, Bob Marley, Michael Jackson. These type of people are like the kind of Magnus Carlsen of their field. It just pours out of them. Like everything Michael Jackson did, with the exception of molesting children, the world just loved. I mean, he musically, we can, he might have been a creepy weirdo, but besides that side, as a musician, he just couldn't go wrong. Everything he did, the whole world just went mad. We loved it so much. These super musicians like Bob Dylan or Bob Marley, or even Elvis or whatever, it's just pouring out of them. I don't think it's connected with anything in their history.
Do you know what's so fantastic about this? I do, I have lots of interviews already in the can and all the rest of it as I'm recording. And I am always fascinated by themes that crop up from different people, the same theme in different.
I've just
Can
lost
you hear me?
your audio for some
All right,
reason.
okay.
Oh, there it is, back. Okay, back.
Oh, that's weird, because I unmuted, but it said it. Oh, okay, that was weird. So what I was
Just
going
for
to
a
say there,
millisecond. Got
what I
you.
was trying
Yeah,
to do, which you couldn't see because my mouth was
okay.
moving, but there was no sound. I'm always fascinated by themes that crop up in different interviews, that literally out of nowhere. And I had a conversation about Michael Jackson with the previous person I was talking to.
Okay.
That's not come out yet. So it's quite funny. He was talking about Michael Jackson being a bit of a weirdo, but also being this extraordinary creative person. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's just an aside. But I totally agree. All I'm saying is that from a point of view of, like with education, but I think actually there's sort of the ability to have your own creativity, as you are as a child,
Yeah.
not snuffed out by how,
Yeah.
when you grow up, is an
Yeah.
advantage to people from the point of view of their own well-being. And
Yeah.
your story is one of always sort of creating something new. You see something,
Yeah.
and sometimes, as you say, sometimes you don't actually see it. Somebody else comes along and goes,
Yeah.
But I think actually that's
But
part of it.
I'm good at spotting. People always tell me this. I'm good at spotting it in other people.
Yeah,
So, like, for example, the Drum Café, I was the drummer that inspired the idea in my friend, but he had the idea, and I was willing to go with his idea. So, even though I wasn't the primary innovator of the concept, I did notice that he was onto something and went with him. So, yeah, I think, I'm good at spotting trends. I'm definitely good at spotting trends because I've spotted a few of them over my life. And I'm also very, this topic that we got into, of these sort of super creators, you could call them that. I am very interested in that because there's something about Osho that had that thing when it came to getting people to open up. That was his super genius, like, you know, that was his Magnus Carlsen chess thing, and Michael Jackson's music thing. And so what I've got a little bit of, and if I had the level that these guys had, I'd be doing this interview from my yacht in the Caribbean, and and you'd be on the yacht with me, and we'd be going jet skiing in about 10 minutes,
Yes.
which I'm not. But
That sounds-
if I had the skill that I'm about to describe on that level, my businesses would have been much bigger, and I would have been much more active. But my skill was to spot what people love, and to manifest that into a business. And I did do that, and I have done it on the scale that I've done it in. And like I said, I'm fine about it. I've had a good life.
Yeah. So can you hear me all right? Because I've just unmuted
Yeah.
myself again. Yeah. Right. So just to get an idea of the scale of what you do, because it doesn't, what you've said so far only seems very, very small, but of course it's not, is it?
No, it's not small. I mean,
No. So
know,
tell us how.
it's how long is a piece of string? It's not small like a little business at a flea market.
No.
But it's not a big company that you would read about in the financial papers or something. So I'll tell you the scale that it's on is that we are in 19 countries, and the number that's our kind of show-off number is that we've done 82,000 shows, and that is the most unlikely story, because you know what one show is. That's when you get in the car, you drive all your equipment, you unpack, and you do a show. That's one show. We've done 82,000 of them in 74 countries. And so yeah, it's had a big reach in the world. I think we worked out that 5 million people have participated in our 4.7, something like that, have participated in our events. And yeah, we've had a big penetration into the world in that regard.
Yes.
So in terms of the reach we've had and the impact we've had, it's been big. But like I say, I'm still not on the yacht, and can't offer you the jet skis. So
yeah, it's a shame.
It wasn't a massive global business. It was just a successful small business. That's how I would describe it: a successful small business.
Yeah, but I think really, we're talking about something where if you're viewing it from the perspective of a very simple idea with a simple musical instrument like a djembe or whatever it is that you're using, depending on presumably, it's an amazing idea. And when you were explaining it to me, because at first it was a bit like, well, I've seen people do things like that, in the UK, and I'd obviously heard of you, but I hadn't realised before I'd met you. I didn't put the two and two together. But I couldn't see, first of all, the point that how that was going to work until, of course, you said, and the thing that really hit me was, there might be companies jetting people in from all over the place to turn up to some conference, and because they turn up there and they sit there and then they look at their phone, and it was this idea of, well, how do you get them off their screens? Well, stick a drum on their chair, because they can't sit down without putting the drum between their knees. And it's like, oh my God, immediately, psychologically, they're in a different space in themselves. They can't, they've got to contend with this drum, and they can't do anything else once everybody starts drumming.
Yeah.
They can't.
No, it's true.
And I thought, and then that really hit me. That's when you told me the story, and it was like, oh my God,
yeah, that problem began while our business was already in existence. So we started in 97, and we became relevant again when the mobile phone pandemic, I'll call it that, began. Because I'll tell you something, having been in events for 23 years, I can tell you that the public enemy number one for events is screens. And before COVID kicked in, there was a huge problem, where you fly. I mean, take a company like Microsoft would fly 5,000 people to the Netherlands, and we did this show for them a few years in a row. And they would struggle to get the attention of their delegates, because people would literally be looking at their Facebook and checking their emails, and often doing actual legitimate work instead of listening to someone talking on the stage. So the mobile phone problem began halfway through the existence of our business. But even before then, we were solving a problem. And the problem was, how do you get human beings to be present and to be connected? And if you can get people to connect with the person sitting next to them on a real level, not the level of, you know, like just say, how are you, it's been sunny, hasn't it, and whatever, and then that's the end of it. On a real level of giggling and laughing and a real smile and actual shared experience, if you can create that, there's such a powerful effect. They feel connected to the company. They feel the connection with the other person. They actually feel an emotion around the event, that they remember it and it's real. And then weirdly, when they're feeling all those things, they then feel present, and they're now listening to what the guy on the stage is saying. And that is gold for a company, because you know, there is nothing more soul destroying than watching an audience who's not interested in what you're saying. You can't shake them out of that. You can't say, please, everyone, focus up. You know, if you shout at them, they're completely gone. If you just tell a few jokes, they might laugh and wake up a little. But to really grab their attention at the point when you've lost them, I can tell you it's very, very difficult. So we are like a trick to get people to wake up. And we didn't even know that that was true when we began, because when we began, we were about entertainment, and we were about going and doing something entertaining in between sessions. But it didn't take us long to realize that we were solving a big problem. And that was the trajectory of our product. It became a way of getting people's conferences to be successful on the deepest level. And you don't do 80,000 events just by being fun, because, you know, it's not enough. Fun means, really, actually, it means nothing. Companies are not interested in their delegates having fun. They want their delegates to be awake, listening, connected, and passionate. And they want people to remember that day. I mean, it's hard to do something memorable. Everyone's done everything. So to make a day really memorable, you've got to be pretty interesting.
Yeah. I want to go back to this, that what you've just said there about making something memorable. I mean, that's quite a difficult thing when you think about it, to make something so memorable in the lives of people nowadays.
Yeah,
because
tricky, eh?
there is so much, you know, if you think about it, the experiences that people have in a lifetime now, I mean, compared to what it would have been like for our grandparents or something like that, I mean, it's incredible, really. So to actually come up with something that you could go, that people could always remember,
yeah, it's a big challenge.
Is a very difficult thing to do, which sort of takes me back a little bit to this thing with Osho. Because I think that's the thing with, you know, people like that, when you experience, I mean, obviously this thing with Alan, that we spoke about, Alan Lowen, earlier on.
Yeah.
You can still, you know, okay, you can't remember everything in detail, but there are certain things that really shine out from that. And you just remember that you were there. And again, it's not a logical thing. It's a sort of a thing that connects you to the experience. So what would you say then, that there was a time before Osho and the time afterwards for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question to ask me, because I've spoken about this recently. I remember writing in March, I think it was just before our lockdown on the 12th of March or something. I remember writing on my Facebook, we are all going to measure our lives as before and after COVID 2020. And I said it, I almost said it before I even really knew it. I instinctively knew that it was going to happen. And it's ended up being true. We will all measure our lives over the next 10, 15 years as before and after 2020. And for me, definitely my two big ones were 1984, when I went to the ranch. And I still, people say to me, how old were you in the sixth form? I was like 1984, 83, 82. I work it out based on 1984 backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And now the next one's 2020. But yeah, my time at Bhagwan's ranch was the big full stop new paragraph of my life, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It was definitely that in terms of my growth as a person, and just my eyes. I did open my eyes that at that time. Really, that was when I opened my eyes and I knew who I was. I lost it again and had to reopen them many times. Haven't remained as clear as I was when I left that ranch. But yeah, it was a benchmark of something for me that time, for sure.
Do you think that made you confident? Oh, that's a crass question, but you know what I mean? Did it give you...
Yeah, I think it did give me, I have got a lot of insecurities. I'm not the most secure person you could meet. But like that experience at the ranch did show me, it was one of the things he taught, like a kind of a glimpse of total acceptance of yourself. So I didn't solve any specific problems or fix any flaws in myself. It was more about kind of just accepting the whole package, nuts and bolts and messy bits and so on. I wouldn't describe it. If you put the question that way, did it give me a lot of self-confidence? I wouldn't say that specifically it did. I would say it gave me a lot of self-acceptance, maybe.
Okay.
Because it was about that, for sure, accepting who you are, and there was a lot of therapy work around this, similar to what Alan's busy with, like just accepting the whole story that you've got.
Yes, I think, yeah, because I'd agree with you with that, because it is that sort of thing of knowing where you are in this moment in time, and and you've arrived at a point in time. Your experiences have led you there, and often the things that you look upon, well, I'm talking from my own experience now, as as a failing, is also a strength in that you probably had that thing came up because you needed it sometime in your life that got you through a problem, and so on. But when you look at life that way, like what are the tools? What tools have I got? Not what tools can I have, which tends to be a lot of what happens with things. But what tools have I already got, and how do I use them?
I think that's a great philosophy, and this whole talk that we're having today, I think that's a great summary of what people should be thinking about. Is that what are you good at? Because you will know lots. I mean, I don't know how many of your students are listening to this talk, but you will know lots of people who are never going to be good at guitar. Okay, you've taught them, you've played with them, and there's nothing you can do. They are never going to be great. Okay, and then your job is not to say to them, go and pick another instrument, because you can be more or less crap at guitar and still get a hell of a lot out of it. And then you meet some people who are just unbelievable, and they are gifted at it. So in a way, the wise people are the ones who find the things that they're good at and put the energy into that. And I won't say the dumb people, the people who choose things that they are really bad at and just will not stop. And drumming is famous for that, by the way, because there's no barrier to entry. All you need is the hands and the drum. So it creates this illusion like it's so easy to do.
Yeah.
And we get so many unrhythmical, non-musical people taking up drumming. My heart breaks. I never have said it out loud, but I've often thought like, oh, please choose something else.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, I've got to agree with you, because if ever I'm involved in some, group of people sitting around, I don't know, a fire or something rather, or you've got that type of meeting point, and somebody brings a djembe with them. I'm always a bit.
Yeah. No,
and
it is a magnet for that.
They don't seem to have an on-off switch. Just keep going. But
I always tell this joke. I used to, at school, I was a very mediocre sports person. I was never great at anything. I'm very fit and healthy now and strong, but I was never good at any sports. And I always joke with people that I realized I was mediocre when I was younger, but in my 40s, when I took up triathlon and showed the perseverance and the commitment and the focus of an older person, I realized that I can be mediocre in my 40s as well. And that's what happened to me. It's like my rugby coach said to me when I was at school, he said to me, Brett, you're short, but you're slow.
That's good.
So for me to have tried to be a competitive sportsman would have been a really sad situation. I was never going to be strong at sports. I mean, I'm fit and healthy, I'm not unhappy about it in any way, but it was never going to happen. And that's why how you started this strand of the conversation is, find what you're good at, find what you love, and just hope that they can be the same thing. And you'll go far. If one of those two things is missing, you've got a problem, for sure.
Yeah. It's interesting that, because I was similar to that at school with sport. I quite like playing football. I wasn't particularly good at it, but what I found that I was good at. I used to hike a lot. I used to walk a lot, and I had a group of friends, and we used to do sort of orienteering at night. There was this sort of chase thing that we used to do, and we were like amazing at this. And it was that sort of thing. Well, you didn't have to be a particularly fast runner. You just had to have the endurance to keep going, and you had to be able to read a map
at the same time.
In the pitch dark. And look at and just be sort of looking for landmarks and all the rest of it. And interesting, because you mentioned chess. I've always liked. In fact, I was really keen on playing chess before I played the guitar. And I used to sort of study games of people and all the rest of it. And then I sort of disappeared, but I've come back to it recently. Started playing quite a lot. Partly as a sort of a thing for my own health, because I had a bit of a weird year before this. I mean, because I had a heart attack just out of the blue.
Completely. Did you?
Yeah, I mean,
Since I physically saw you.
I had a heart attack, and then I was under a lot of stress anyway. But that's beside the point. And then I had a stroke. 2 days later, I had a stroke.
Oh my God! I didn't know.
But it was only it got sort of some of my cognitive stuff, and so I got back into playing chess. I first started doing things so I could multitask. So I would teach people online before, obviously, the COVID stuff. So by the time it all came around again, the COVID thing, I was already teaching people online. I just,
right.
But what was good was I was able to talk or listen to somebody like I'm doing, and be able to type something, on another computer. And then I thought, well, let's go back into playing chess. So pattern recognition became better. And I think it's that attitude, like you're saying. Find what you can do, Find what you can do. And bring a bit of passion to it somehow. Get a bit of enthusiasm, or just keep going at it. I mean, just keep doing it.
Absolutely. Vic, I didn't know that. So did you have any pre-warning before your?
Not that you would have thought, hello, there's something not right here.
You weren't having chest pain or something like
you
that.
sort of go, that was a bit weird. That was a bit strange. That kept happening to me. And Yeah. So, I mean, in reflection, you could go, yeah, that's probably it. But it wasn't anything that you would have associated with that
Right.
type of thing.
Mm.
But as I say, I'm still here, and it's been quite. In fact, it's been a really. I know this sounds a bit of a silly thing to say, but a really good thing for me.
Wow, that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, because it made me do things that I had to do. I had to step back from, because obviously I think it's safe to say I'm not being egotistical here, but I'm actually quite good at teaching music.
I know you are. Yeah.
And the trouble is, when you're good at something like that, you can fill your day with it.
Mm.
And I did that. And I was literally doing stuff where, really, to be honest, it was a bit like, well, this is not really the skills that I've really got, apart from just being able to get these kids to be able to play and be creative. It's the fact that I'm just doing that one-to-one. Really my skill is being able to take groups of people and be able to get lots of people doing stuff and doing really crazy things that they just didn't realize they could do. I'm really good at doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But of course I can't be developing that while I'm just sitting there teaching, little Millie and little Jonathan.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. It's a tricky problem.
Great about your story is that you managed to do the thing where, and a lot of people who are musicians are pretty bad at this. You're able to scale up an idea.
Yeah.
And and that really struck me, how good, even that story that you said right at the beginning when you were like 22 and you had a factory with 30 odd people, so bags. It's like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Well,
it is actually a great question, Vic. And the truth is, not many people are self-aware enough to know what they're good at. And one of the things that I am good at, and believe me, like I said, chess, never going to happen. Competitive sports, never going to happen. I'm under no illusion. What I am good at is with any manifesting business, I'm good at knowing what to do next. It sounds like the most obvious thing in the world, but when people come to me with their business ideas, they say, I've got this amazing idea. I want to open an ice cream shop or something. And then I'm like, okay, so let's hear. And then they say, I've got this blah, blah, blah idea. I want to do ice cream shops, and there's nothing like this in my area, and blah, blah, blah. So far, all sounds great. And then they start showing me their logo. And they've been spending, a week doing a logo and fonts and everything. And I'm thinking, no, hold on a sec. What are you worrying about the logo for? Have you got ice cream yet? And then it's like, that's quite an obvious example. So in other words, I know that the next thing they have to do, if they want to do an ice cream business, is make great ice cream or have ice cream so it's like, it's obvious to me when they're like barking up the wrong tree. They're talking about hiring people. They're talking about their logo, they're talking about buying a van or something like that, when I'm like, no, first you need a venue, first you need ice cream, those two things. If you haven't got the venue, you haven't got the ice cream, you got nothing. And on bigger business, those decisions become more and more and more critical. You have to know what to do next. And that's why, for me, I was able to take, a bag that I bought back from Brazil, this moon bag, and actually work out how to make it, how to produce them, how to get them onto the flea markets, how to get them into the stores, how to sell them, how to market them, how to, fine tune them and create new concepts. It was always obvious to me what to do next. And actually, for an entrepreneur, that is an absolutely critical skill. It goes up to the level of, a complete magician of what to do next is Jeff Bezos, because he sees stuff like, he sees 15 years ahead what to do next.
Yeah.
While all of us are going, oh, books online, could it work? Could it work? He's already imagining us buying our fridge from him in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a great entrepreneur will not only have a good idea, but will know what they have to do next. And they will also know what they're not good at, by the way. So when a person who's not good at numbers ends up doing their books, problem number one. If a person's not good at hiring people, and they end up choosing bad people, problem number two. So yeah, it's knowing what you're good at and knowing what to do next. I would put.
So here's a question for you. When you say that you know what needs to come next, how do you know that? Do you see it? Do you feel it?
I think it's just like, for me, it's just like an instinct. I'd say it's just an instinct. It's a little bit like when someone comes into your room and they've got a guitar and you watch them play and you think you can immediately see what they're doing wrong. You don't have to actually think about it. You're like, no, your grip is totally wrong. We need to fix that up. Or you slouching and, you'll just look at them and you'll know immediately what they're doing wrong. Or they, focusing too hard on a certain type of thing or not enough on something. It's just kind of obvious to me, that type of thinking. So
the reason I asked that, because that's a sort of an NLP thing, isn't it? Really, it was a bit blatant, but it's just that it seems obvious when you could do it, but to somebody else, it is obviously because they don't do that. So I'm just sort of intrigued because sometimes it's like you can't actually say how you do it.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's the case with you, but for a lot of people, when you ask them, and I used to do a lot of these things when I interview guitarists about what's it like when you're in the zone and you're playing, and first of all they go, I don't know. And then you press them a little bit more, and then they'll say something really crazy, like, "Well, my ears twitch," or I get this feeling on the back of my head, or I hear things coming from the left side. It's like you go, okay. It always comes something like that. So I'm quite interested in that sort of stuff.
It is interesting. Some people don't know what they're good at. Actually, I've got a friend who's got a company he actually manufactures bags. And he doesn't know how he knows or why he knows. He's got no idea that he's even got that skill because he's got nothing to compare it against. But he's making these bags and he's doing exceptionally well. He's got a gift that he doesn't even realize it yet. He just thinks it's normal. He thinks everyone can do that, but they can't. So many people have got no idea they've got that skill. I would say that it took me many years to pinpoint it down. I always thought I was a great manager, actually. I always thought that was one of my skills. It turns out I'm actually not a good manager. I'm not, I can demotivate people. I can irritate them. I can choose people for the wrong reasons. So that isn't one of my skills. I've realized it's taken me years to realize it. And I think that comes with age a little bit, where you can see clearly what you're good at and what you're not good at. I think it comes with age, more or less.
Yeah, maybe that's true. I could resonate with that, and I've actually heard something very similar to that. Somebody else who was talking about. Forgotten his name. The guy who runs Bridgewater. The sort of people buy sort of stocks and all that sort of stuff. He's like one of the most successful people in that type of arena, and he always thought he was a good manager, and it turns out he isn't. But it took him a long time to realise that actually that's not his skill. So it's interesting you said that, but in the same thing that he could easily demotivate somebody. Particularly when you have a particular idea and a vision that as an entrepreneur you just think, well, it's obvious type of thing. And entrepreneurs often do that, I think. Probably I do. things.
They do. I agree with you on
can't see
that.
why other people can't see what it is that I've got in my head, type of thing.
Yeah, it's like, and I heard Anna Kournikova on a talk show saying she said like something, they were playing tennis and he said, I can't just hit the ball when I serve. I often miss. She said, no, you need to watch the ball. Like she was maybe being a little bit sarcastic, but it's like she doesn't necessarily know that everybody else can't play tennis compared to her. That I don't know anything about Anna Kournikova. It might or might not be true, but those gifted people don't necessarily know that everyone else doesn't have that gift. They might and they might not.
Actually, I think that is a very good point. There's a friend of mine who is a great guitar player, and he teaches, and he said every now and again it's a good idea to take the guitar, if you're a right-handed guitar player, take the guitar and swap it round and play it left-handed
Lovely.
for a while,
Yeah,
just to understand what it's like.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
and I think such a clever idea to feel what it is to be a beginner again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, that comes back again to that sort of that Eastern sort of thing of the beginner's mind.
Yeah,
What is it that you need to experience again in order to move forward from where you are, however far ahead you are?
Yeah.
To find that thing that you might have lost in the process.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. So you actually can glimpse that feeling again. And actually the corollary of that thinking, in other words, like for an expert to be reminded what it was to be a beginner so that they can teach. The other side's also true, which is that beginners, it's that thing called the Hobbs Bison principle. It's that cognitive bias thing where I'll remember the name of it in a sec. Where you don't know how bad you are at something. Like, for example, like I do West African drumming, which is the sort of the djembe tradition of the griots from West Africa, Senegal, Mali, Burkina Faso, and all of those. So they've got this tradition of djembe where they've been playing for centuries, and they are in that area naturally good at it. So you'll get a guy who's naturally gifted, and he'll spend 30 years playing for 5 hours a day, and he'll reach the true mastery level of this thing. But a person who comes into the Drum Café and picks up a drum, and they hear me play, and then they hear this guy play, they see it as being like a little, I'm here and he's maybe a bit better than me. But it takes being on my level to see how much above me this guy is. So it takes 30 years of playing to realize how vertically superior to me a true master is.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm saying beginners don't even know the difference between, like an advanced person and a proper master.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I always like to sort of compare things like martial arts to things like this. Because it's very, very similar. Very similar. Very similar. Even to the point that you can see somebody do something and you think, well, what's that? And yet, if you can do the stuff, you look at that and you think, oh my God, that's incredible. Again, you can see, if you're already, you're already on that journey yourself, and you can see somebody else do something, and it's just somewhere else.
It's a great metaphor, martial arts, because we all know people who do martial arts and they get to black belt, and then they think, oh, I'm a black belt, and then they go to Japan. And they go into the dojo with like the real, and then they realize black belt means beginner. You're at the beginning. And then their teacher, who's been teaching for 30 years, tells them about the top master guy. And only the teacher knows what it means to be 6th Dan or whatever these guys are. And it's a great metaphor, because you have to be very, very high up to be able to see right up to the top. It's true. It's a great metaphor, martial arts.
It's a bit like climbing a mountain, isn't it? You could be right near the top and you realize actually the top is.
That's when you know,
From the bottom, it looks like it's only a little bit further on, type of thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's it.
Right. So what's your plans then for, well, I was going to say world domination after the
So yeah, so this year for me on a spiritual level, I lost my mom and my dad.
yeah, yes.
Not to COVID. My dad had a heart attack, and my mom had emphysema and
All right.
was dying anyway.
Yeah.
The business just went, it just went on to, it got mothballed. I would describe it like that. We don't know where it's going to go. And on a personal level, my daughter also broke her ankle, and I had to be in and out of hospital during the beginning of lockdown. So I had all these things hitting me, and they were quite intense. And then I also had a bit of a health scare where I had a blood pressure issue that was getting worse. And I got this thing called left ventricular myocardium, which is when the left wall of your heart starts thickening because of uncontrolled blood pressure. So I had that, and I then made a decision. This was about 5 months ago to fix this. So I went onto a 100% vegan diet, a 100% whole food diet, and I'm doing a whole bunch of things. I've been running every day. I run between 8 and 10 kilometers a day. I'm doing intermittent fasting, and I'm very happy to say that I have gone off all my blood pressure medications, and I've got normal blood pressure. It's 118/78, unmedicated. My cholesterol is 2.2 or something, which is normal, and it was 6. And I think I've solved my left ventricular myocardium through. I've lost some weight. I actually lost about 12 kilos since I started, and I feel great. I actually am doing something called nose breathing, which is another weird thing that I do, where you run breathing only through your nose.
That's
There's
a
a hell
very
of a
Ayurvedic thing, isn't it? I don't know if you know.
yeah. They do a lot of that. You're quite right. And there's in the history of humans, they've spoken a lot about it. I've discovered that it made me fitter very quickly to not mouth breathe.
Yeah.
So at night, I put a small piece of sticky tape on between my two lips, not enough to jam my mouth shut, but it trains your jaw to stay closed and keep you breathing through your nose. That's been a big breakthrough. So I'm doing all these things. It's gut biome stuff around having kombucha and a healthy flora, which means no sweeteners, no refined sugar, and all these things that I'm doing. So I mentioned that because you say where to from here. I've used this year to learn about my body and to learn about my health. And I listen to Joe Rogan on every run that I go on, and he's just great. I love everyone that he introduces. I listen to a lot of books about the body and about eating and diet and veganism and everything. So my answer to you is that for now, I'm kind of having a sabbatical around my own health and my own sort of spiritual health, actually. And that's where I am for now, because the phone's not ringing yet, and I don't think it's going to until the new year. I just don't think people are going to be talking about events until January, February, March, and even then, Vic, I don't know if it's gonna come back. I just don't know, and I'm not actually. It's not going to kill me if it doesn't, because something else will come up, and I'm not in a big hurry to be working hard yet.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. But again, I think that fits your character, being adaptable to things.
Yeah.
Even when life creeps up on you, and you need to do something about your health. You can take all these things in your stride, because weirdly, I mean, that has actually presented this year has presented that opportunity.
Yes,
And
it did.
particularly when you get, you know, bereavements and stuff, and you have to go through the grief of everything. You need time, and you need to do what we probably did before, which was to move, you know, to run, to walk great distances and all that sort of stuff, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, the worst thing is not to be doing that, is to be sitting in front of a screen, tapping on a keyboard or whatever it is that people do, you know, because you don't get a chance to get rid of all that adrenaline and fight, flight stuff.
No, I think when you know, both parents dying, like on a practical level, I'm next. You know, it's like when you've got two parents living, there's a buffer between you and death. When they're both gone, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be soon, but I'm next in the line. And it was a big wake-up call for me there, both my parents dying. It was definitely like, okay, we're not fucking around anymore. You know, I need to fix this heart thing, because it's a clear line that's going towards a problem. And I was, in a way, I would say I was lucky that it happened during 2020, because I have been able to be very self-indulgent in terms of time. I mean, 10 years ago, there was no way I was going running at 9:30 in the morning. You know, I did not have any time to spare. And never mind 10 years ago, at any time in the last 30 years. So I'm lucky that this is the year that I've had some time to just be a little bit selfish and listen to YouTube and go running and do yoga and
it's good.
So
good.
Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic talking to you, and and it's been a while since we met. And
it's been a while. Yeah, we in each other's radar, but
yeah. Well, we, you know, we always.
It was a magic moment. We talk a lot about that trip. I don't know how much your listeners know about Corfu, but it was a magic little moment in our lives, in me and my wife, also Sue, me and Sue's life, a magic little moment that lasted for a long time.
Yes.
We had a great aura around us for a long time after that.
Yes, that's good. So so I wish you all the very best, and your family, of course.
Great.
So
great. Thank you very much.
And I think there's so much in what you've said. I think for a lot of people who are sort of creative, obviously there's an angle on the musicianship side of it from obviously a lot of the people that listen to this. And they certainly need to have, you know, if you're listening to people that are adaptable and have done different things, but they've used music and all the rest of it, I think it's encouraging to people.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, it is a great lesson. Find what you love, find what you're good at, put in the 10,000 hours. Yes. I tell you, those three things together, I can't really believe that someone could fail too badly with those three things.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Great way to finish there. So all the very best.
Thank you, Vic, and you too. And I look forward to seeing you in the real world one day.
Yes.
When humans are traveling again and we are all meeting up and the government stops interfering in our ability to go and have coffee and things like that.
Yes, I totally agree. All right. So thanks so much. Speak to you soon.
All right, Vic. All the best. Take care.